bilingual, it's got to be multilingual, and I know Steve will get into this a lot more later. Customers start their buying cycle online, where they can get answers to their frequently asked questions and product info, transaction in their native language, okay? Customers are 4 times more likely to buy from a website if it's in their native language.
Okay. That's the question.
Yeah.
I have had a couple of clients that they were looking at how they were going to allocate their budget, and especially when it came to converting some of their content to another language, and they brought up the fact that since so many folks are going, since grade school, that they're learning all these other languages, that we had a hard time convincing them to convert and this was for a pay-per-click campaign, to convert to the other language, because they were kind of they found that many countries were okay with looking at a American version of it. Now, so you kind of said 2 translation things. One was translate content to be, I won't say more bland, but to be more generic, right? Less offensive, I guess. The second level of translation would be actual translating into the language.
Yeah.
And what do you say to folks when they say something like that? I mean, like, is it easier to get away with it in Mexico and in Spain than it is with Germany, or because it's a pretty big investment to have you start adding up 3, 4, 5 different languages. And at what point do because the client said to me that I think 80 or 85% of the people who might see this page will be able to speak English and read English, and that's the way that they're used to doing things.
Well, the international business language is English, yes, and business people speak mostly English, yes. But if you're talking about products, consumers that you're trying to reach that do not speak the language, it's important to have them in their native language. What we tell clients, you don't have to translate your complete website. Start slow, translate a couple of pages, and then do the SEO and do get your statistics and see how many hits do you get? I mean, and how many people are going on to the other pages that are within your website, and that's how you can track it. So, do you want to add something to that,
real
Steve?
quick too. I mean, everything we do when it comes to, you're talking about direct marketing, basically. You're creating web apps to drive a particular audience for a particular product, particular keywords to a particular landing page, to give them a particular call to action, right? So when you take all that into focus, then it's a very direct, it's a rifle shot on where you're going. So, a lot of it really depends on where you're going to go with trying to get this audience. For example, we went to SES in London not too long ago, and if you wanted to advertise for the British market for running shoes, you would not attract them with the term running shoes because they call them training shoes. So even translating from English to English sometimes is not what you need to do. So regardless of the language of the targeted product, everything should be localized. And if you have a Spanish, Spain Spanish, Castilian is very different than what you're going to have if you're going to try to work towards South America. And that's even true when you're coming into social media components, which I'll talk about in a little while, in a little bit here as well. That Facebook is really hot here in the United States and hot in some other countries, but it's not the dominant social media companion for people who live in Brazil. Orca is. So there's doing something the way that we do it in the United States for the sake that we do it that way in the United States is, yes, going to capture a large part of the audience. But if you've got a defined audience that you're trying to get to on a localized basis with writing the purposeful ad with purposeful content that's going to drive them to a purposeful landing page and then drive them to a call to action that's going to take them to conversion, then maybe not converting the whole website where you want to go, but certainly having a landing page specific to that ad is going to be really important.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Each user might set preferences for languages in their engine settings for IE or Firefox, whatever. And if your site is not translated, a lot of times you wouldn't even be exposed to those audiences. So just to add one more thing.
Sure. But I hate to say it's individual, but it really is.
Right.
It depends on who your target client is, what your product's going to be, and how you're going to get them to yes. And that, all of marketing starts with trying to get somebody to get the yes. So.
But even here in the United States, the Hispanic community is growing so fast. If Walmart, I mean, all these places, everybody is marketing to the Hispanic community, and I'm sure part of your stuff is
I'm presenting to the
reaching out.
Hispanic Chamber on the
That's right,
14th.
you are,
So
yeah.
but it was a matter of fact that just the chamber group alone, that their culture, that the Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, was different than any chamber meet I've ever been to. That like they walk you over and introduce you to people you never met. They were like just more like ingratiating, you know,
Yeah.
like just wanting to get everybody to know each other. It just that part of their group was different, and they had the best food of any chamber event.
That's what you that's what I get. A great book to read, if you haven't read it, is Don DePalma. He wrote Business Without Borders, and he calls the internet, the global internet, the eighth continent. Because you can do anything you pretty much want, and you have no regulations. So, you know, but he says you gotta have it in languages so people can find you. And like I said, U.S. Hispanics are the fastest growing ethnic group here, and they have money to spend too. I mean, they spend a lot of time online, so if you reach out to them in Spanish, we have a lot of clients that market to them. I mean, we're doing radio spots now for clients in Hispanic only, just to reach out to this growing community of Hispanic people. And Canada, I mean, Canada and South America, for most companies, are the first markets that they explore because it's easy. You can always drive there, and it's easier to ship your products and your services to those bordering countries. I know if you go to Europe and China and Asia, South Africa and all those places, there's a lot more involved. So, and like I said, don't forget, even if you're on this eighth continent that I'm going to call this now, you're still dealing with thousands of languages and dialects over 24 time zones. So, like I said, that's why you can find me working later, work very early in the morning. I'm glad we don't have video computers yet, where people can see me what I look like sometimes. Familiar with John Juncker? Are you familiar with John Juncker, Steve?
I'm sorry?
Level Research, John Juncker with
No, I'm
Level
not.
Research.
Sorry.
He's actually from St. Louis, and he has a lot of cool data that I tap into all the time for internet. He says a third of the world's population is on the internet, and there are over 800 million users, with Asia being the leader, with 42% of where 42% of cyberspace resides. North America only holds 13.5%, Europe 24.4%. So you see where we are here. And the rest is spread across Africa, Middle East, Latin America, Oceania, and Australia. And like I said before, the internet has no boundaries. And I saw you have that too. The Arabic language, for example, has increased by 2,500%. So it's one of the top translated languages right now. And this happened over the past 10 years. Chinese by 12%, Spanish by 7%, and English didn't even triple up. So, yeah.
See Portuguese on there?
So that's when web designers, and I don't want to get too much into the techie stuff because I know you're going to talk about the techie stuff, but I found this interesting that when you create websites, because we talk to the clients too, the big companies, yes, they have the budgets to translate everything, to make it all look cool, to work everywhere, and then make sure you have your local extensions for the country extensions like .de for Germany or .ru for Russia, and have them optimized for the search engines. And so how can small and medium-sized companies compete with the big dogs out there? For example, talk to Steve. They just redid our website. We have a really cool website now. Basic, simple, in a couple languages.